Rabotai, I would like to continue with the show of Prophet Samuel. We reached to chapter 29, and today we're going to do chapter 29. But before we start, I would like to dedicate the show in a soul of Esther Kaden Bat Ketia, Mordechai Ben Rachma, Tamar Bat Zeava, Parha Bat Salha, Malka Regina Bat Joya, Yaakov Salomon Ben Farha, Yafa Bat Kalman, Nahum Ze'ev Ben Israel, Shmuel Ben Dodo, Eliyahu Ben Farha. Nishmatam תהיה צרורה בצור החיים. Also, I would like to dedicate the shiur in the health of Liora Bet Miriam, Menashe Naji Ben Farha, Rav Moshe Ben Bahia Batya, Rav Moshe Ben Devora, Rav Shlomo Yehuda Ben Dalia, Rav Yitzhak Ben Yamna, Rav Shimon Chion Ben Hana, Rav Avraham Ben Marima, Dvora Bat Esther, Sheina Keila Bat Hana, Mordechai David Ben Leah, Yehuda Hillel Ben Shulamit Leah, Chaim Nahum Ben Pesa Reza Kohen, Yehuda Ben Eliezer, Meir Ben Yehuda, Gabriel Ben Chaya Sheina Leah, Pesach Yitzhak Ben Ela, Yala Eden Bat Rivka, Tzvi Ben Hava, Malka Bat Rachel, Yael Bat Dorit, Hava Bat Sarah Gito, ואורנה בלומה בת מרים, please God, רפואה שלמה to them ולכל חולה ופצועי עמו בית ישראל בכל מקום שהם. רבותיי, בעזרת השם, we're starting the shiur. Okay, we are in chapter 29, Prophet Samuel, volume 1. But before we start chapter 29, I just want to do a quick revision for chapter 28. In chapter 28, we explained that chapter called Eshet Ov. Eshet Ov is the woman that doing all the sorcery that we learn. That we explained that when Shaul HaMelech saw that the Philistine getting together to war, and he saw that the great army that the Philistine have and the weapon, he actually got cold feet, got very frightened. Shaul HaMelech then tried to ask the prophet what's going to be the result of this war, ask in Urim and Tumim, ask in a dream. We explain he davened to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he actually not been answered, didn't receive an answer, not from the Almighty and not from the prophet. No one can actually help him. Shaul HaMelech, that was in dire straits, then decided to use sorcery. The other side, the unpure part, not the holy part. And he asked for a woman that know how to communicate with Saul. And we explained that Avner ben Ner mentioned to King Saul that his mother know how to communicate with Saul out of this earth. Shaul HaMelech then asked to be taken to her, and when he gone to her in the beginning, he didn't tell her who he is, and he asked her, please, okay, that to try to communicate him with the soul of the prophet Samuel. We explained that when Prophet Samuel been communicated, the Prophet Samuel was at the beginning very, very upset and very cross with Saul, and he asked him, why are you doing it? And King Saul explained to him, listen, I'm in dire straits, I don't know what to do. Okay, I asked in every other way, no one wanted to give me an answer, so I decided the only reason that I can communicate is only with you. And I want to know what's going to be the outcoming of that war against the Philistine this time, because I'm very frightened. And we explained that here King Saul explained to him that this time him and his 3 kids gonna die in a war. And if he doesn't go to war, nothing gonna happen to him. But if he go to war, that will be his atonement that he killed the member of Nov Era Kohanim. That's what's happened. Also, we explained that Saul actually, the prophet Samuel tell King Saul for the first time that David HaMelech going to be the next king after him, which until now the prophet Samuel was have a lot of doubt, a lot of worry to say that, because he was frightened that tonight King Saul gonna turn and kill him. That's how we explain. Also, after that, King Saul heard the bad news from the prophet. He decided for the first time.
It's my credit
Sorry,
card.
I need to mute here. Yes, it's muted now. We say that after King Saul heard the bad news, he actually collapsed. He couldn't stand up. He couldn't do nothing because he didn't eat all day and all night. And not only that, that he didn't want also to eat. While the mother of Avner ben Ner, the minister or the chief of staff of Shaul, tried to convince him to eat, and his men, the beginning he refused, but then they managed to convince him, and he agreed to eat, and immediately the mother of Avner ben Ner that have a lamb made a fattened lamb with bread, and they all eaten, and Shaul got his strength back, got his energy back, stood up, and they gone to him and his men, returned back to Givat Shaul. That's how chapter 28 basically ended. Now we're going to start chapter 29, רבותיי. בעזרת השם נעשה ונצליח, והשם עלינו ברחמיו ורביעיו. Chapter 29. ויקבצו הפלישתים את כל מחניהם אפקה, וישראל חונים בעין אשר ביזרעאל.
The Philistines mobilized their entire army to Aphek, and Israel was encamped by the spring that is in Jezreel.
The pshat of the dvarim that we see that the Mefarshim tell us something extraordinary, that the Plishtim now, that was the second day. I have to explain. Why? Because the first day that the Plishtim moved the army, they would move and they gather all the army and they move to Shunam. Today, the prophet tell us that they move from Shunam to the Ain. Where is that? In the valley of Emek Israel. Okay? Shaul HaMelech and his men also make their own camp. Where? In Emek Israel. Okay? Next to the Ain. Rabota, I need to explain. In the olden days, they used to go to a valley and they used to fight all day. And at night, everyone used to go back. Those that die used to stay in the valley. Okay? And at night, they used to have a peace. Early in the morning, they used to blow the trumpet, and again, they used to go back to the valley fighting, and whoever wins, he's the winner until the war finish or until people will escape and run away. It wasn't a war that we know like today that was invasion, that people invade the land, like we have like in the 7th of October that Hamas invented, okay, to the land of Eretz Israel, penetrated to the land. It was a different war in their time. They used to go to a valley and they used to fight there in a valley between the two armies. In verse 2, the Torah tell us, the prophet tell us something very interesting. Look what it says. ושרני פלישתים עוברים למאות ולאלפים, ודוד ואנשיו עוברים באחרונה עם אחיש. Jeffrey, verse 2, you are muted. Please unmute yourself.
Sorry. Okay. The governors of the Philistines were passing by with hundreds and thousands, And David and his men were passing at the rear with Achish.
Here, the prophet describes something very interesting, that those 5 main ministers of the Plishtim, okay, gather all the army and they make group, that in each group was 100 men, okay? Each group have 100 soldiers, okay, to fight, and they have 1,000 of them. That means that they make 10 groups to make 1,000. And then the prophet tells us that David HaMelech and his men, okay, was right to the back with Achish. The Mefarshim explain and ask a question. First of all, they ask a question. David HaMelech, why are you going to fight against your nation? So we'll see that there is 2 reasons why David HaMelech wanted to go, and we will explain it now. The Mefarshim explained that David HaMelech, number 1, on a pshat of the dvarim, needed to go because he had an obligation. Because Achish Melech Gad asked him to join him to the war. Okay? Achish Melech Gad given David HaMelech and his men the city of Ziklag. Okay? David HaMelech couldn't refuse now Achish, because if you refuse to Achish, you have to leave Ziklag. Him and his men and all their families. The Ralbag, Rabbi Levy ben Gershon, that he born in France 737 years ago. Also the Malbin. The Malbin is Rabbi Meir Lebush ben Michael Weiser. He born in Ukraine 216 years ago. Explain, you know why David HaMelech now have an obligation to go? Because Achish Melech Gat asked him to be his personal bodyguard. And David HaMelech agreed to it already earlier. So now he couldn't refuse not to go with Achish Melech Gat. The Mefarshim will learn later on, will bring another reason. What was the motive of David HaMelech to go to join the Plishtim to fight against the children of Israel? In verse 3, here the minister of the Plishtim tell us something very interesting. ויאמרו שרי פלישתים, מה העבריים האלה? ויאמר אחיש אל שרי פלישתים, הלא זה דוד, עבד שאול, מלך ישראל, אשר היה איתי זה ימים או זה שנים, ולא מצאתי בו מאומה, מיום נופלו עד היום הזה.
The Philistine officers said, "What are these Hebrews doing here?" And Achish replied to the Philistine officers, "Is it not David, the servant of Saul, king of Israel, who has been with me for these days, all these years? And I've found no fault with him from the day he encamped with me until this very day."
What's happening here? In this verse, the minister of the Plishtim, when they saw Achish come as last group to join to the war, they said to Achish, hold on one second, hey, Pasok, isn't that David HaMelech? He said, yes, this is David HaMelech, King David and his men. That's the Hebrew. What are they doing here? He said, what do you mean what they doing here? They come to join us to the war to fight against the Israelites. He said, what? He said, they come to join us to the war. Say Achish Melech Gad, yes. Don't you know that David HaMelech and his men moved to my country? Since they moved him and his men to my country, I never saw nothing wrong with them. Okay? And then he said days, and then he said shanim. We have to understand why he mentioned days and then he say years. But Be'ezrat Hashem will explain everything, what's happening here, why he mentioned days and what he mentioned years. So first of all, what's happening in this verse? The Radak, Rabbi David Kimhi, that born in France 885 years ago, he said that David HaMelech, Nachon that David HaMelech was with the Jewish people, but David HaMelech had a fallout with who? With King Saul, with his father-in-law. Now they don't see eye to eyes. And since he have the fall, that's 2 years since they have the problem, David HaMelech all the time was on a run until the last 4 months that he came to me, and they living with me in Gat. And a matter of fact, I given him even a city, and him and his man and their wife, all their family living with me. And I want to tell you, since they moved with me, it seems like that I know him for years. I never saw nothing wrong with them. I didn't find anything to make me suspicious of them. So I don't understand what you worried about. He gonna join us to the war against his own nation. That's how the Radak explained. The Mitzudot David, Rabbi David Altshela, that born in Galicia 338 years ago, he explained like this. He explained that Achish saying to the king of the Plishtim, what are you worried? I know David already for 4 months. And for 4 months, I never saw nothing wrong with him. What does it mean I never saw nothing wrong with him, with his men? That I know that he's fighting against his men, against different tribes of the Jewish people. Remember, we explained in a previous Shorim that David HaMelech mislead Achish Melech Gad, and when he used to fight with the Amalekim, with all the 7 nations around Israel, he told them that he fight with who? With the children of Israel. So, say Achish Melech Gad, I never saw nothing wrong with them. The Malbim explained that what does it mean years that we're talking about? The Malbim said that here Achish Melech Gad said, it's already 2 years since David HaMelech doesn't see eye to eyes with his father-in-law, who? King Saul. And King Saul want to kill him now for 2 years, and David HaMelech all the time on a run. So what are you worried? David HaMelech now is with us. That's how Achish tried to convince the minister of the Plishtim. Let's look in verse 4. What does it say? ויקפצו עליו שרי פלישתים, ויאמרו לו שרי פלישתים, השב את האיש, וישוב אל מקומו, אשר הפקדתו שם, ולא ירד עמנו במלחמה, ולא יהיה לנו לשטן במלחמה. ובמה יתרצה? Now, ובמה יתרצה? זה אל אדוניו, הלא בראשי האנשים הם.
Yes. But the Philistine officers were angry with him. And the Philistine officers said to him, send this man back and let him return to the place that you assigned to him. Let him not go down to battle with us, so that he not be an antagonist to us in the battle. What can this person ingratiate himself to his Lord? Is it not with the heads of these, our men?
Okay, here it's a very difficult verse. We have to understand what's happening here. First of all, when the minister of the Plishtim heard what Achish Melech Gad have to tell them regarding David HaMelech, they was very angry with him. Very, very angry with him. Why? we have to understand why the minister of the Plishtim was so cross with Achish Melech Gat. That they, first of all, they saying to him like this: I want you to send David HaMelech and his men back to that place in Ziklag. You given him a city in your country, in Gat, send them back. We don't want them with us. We don't want them with us in a war. The Mefarshim explain
Tomorrow
that
the
the Mefarshim explain why it was so difficult for the Plishtim, okay, to understand or to accept, or that's the right word, that David HaMelech can fight with them. The Mefarshim explained that they said to David, to Achish Melech Gash, do you believe for a second that David HaMelech ever going to fight against his own nation? Tell me, do you think that David HaMelech will ever kill his father-in-law? Do you really believe in it? Said the Mefarshim. The minister of the Plishtim saying to the Mefarshim explained that they're saying to Achish Melech Gat, you must understand that the main reason that David HaMelech want to join this war with us, that he will kill many men, as many men that he killed from the Plishtim, in order to make peace with his father-in-law. That by that he's going to kill many of us in a war, okay? And he's going to bring our heads to Shaul. That's going to be basically to do atonement with his father-in-law, to make peace with his father-in-law. That's mean in that verse, the minister of the Plishtim saying to Achish, you are living in complete denial. Do you think that David HaMelech gonna join us to kill his own nation? That's why they were so cross with Achish. Look in verse 5, we're gonna explain how the minister of the Plishtim explaining to Achish that why they don't want David HaMelech. Look at verse 5, what they say. And then they say like this. Where's verse 5? Verse 5 is here. הלא זה דוד אשר יענו לו במחולות לאמור, היכה שאול באלפיו, ודוד ברבבותיו.
So the Philistine officer was carried on. Is this not David, of whom they sing with the timbrels, saying, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands?
In this verse, the minister of the Plishtim saying to the Achish Melech Gat, you brought David HaMelech to join us to the war against his own nation. But we want to remind you what happened in the last war that David HaMelech was involved. King Saul killed 2,000. David HaMelech killed 10,000. You forgot how the Jewish people cheered for him, how they welcomed him. Don't you realize what's happening here? There's no better proof that David HaMelech is the enemy of us. The Malbim explain like this. Look how the Malbim put it so nicely, what the minister of Plishtim saying to the king of God. They're saying to Achish, look, David HaMelech, when he was in peace with his father-in-law, with King Saul, he killed 10,000 of us. Now that he doesn't see eye to eyes with his father-in-law, you know what's happening? He's joining us. David HaMelech is not someone that you can trust. David HaMelech easily can turn against us. What's wrong with you? Don't you see that David HaMelech is not trustworthy, him and his men? We cannot trust David HaMelech. David HaMelech can turn against us in any second. The same like he turned against his father-in-law and against his own nation, he can turn against us. That's what the minister of Plishtim is saying to who? To Achish Melech Gat. But he said to them, you know why he's doing it? All that he join us to the war, that he can kill us from the back, and that he's going to make peace with his father-in-law. So they explained, the minister of the Plishtim saying to Achish Melech Gat, listen, if David HaMelech going to join us to the war against his own nation, it's going to be a tragedy for us. And verse 6, look what they said to, after they say that, now Achish have stuck, he doesn't know what to do. Look what the prophet say, ויקרא אחיש אל דוד, ויאמר אליו, חי אדוני, כי ישר אתה וטוב בעיניי, צאתך ובואך איתי במחנה, כי לא מצאתי בך דבר רע, מיום בואך אליי עד היום הזה, ובעיני השרינים לא טובתה.
So Achish called David and said to him, as Hashem lives, you are an upright person, and your going forth and coming in with me in the camp would have been fine with me, for I have found nothing wrong with you from the day of your coming to me until this very day. But in the eyes of the governors, you are not good.
Okay, what's happening here? Here Achish tried to cover up for the governors of the Plishtim. He doesn't want to embarrass David. So what he's saying to him? He called David and he take an oath in the name of the Almighty that he know that David HaMelech is a loyal man. And from the day that David HaMelech came to live with him in Gat, in a city of Gat, him and his men and their family, he didn't find nothing wrong with David HaMelech or with his men. But unfortunately, the governors, it's not anymore the ministers, it's the governors that putting pressure on me, that they don't want you to come with me, to join me to the war against your nation. Why? Because they don't believe that you're loyal enough to me. The Malbim explained like this, that at the beginning, Achish Melech Gad didn't want to harm David HaMelech's honor. So he told them, look, the minister doesn't want you to join the war. You know why? Because they're jealous of you. Because they know that you're a great warrior. Therefore, they're jealous of you, so they're telling me that they doesn't want you. They said to me, you know what? If you take David and put him like a normal soldier, okay, like any ordinary soldier, not as an officer, he can join them. He can join us. But when David HaMelech agreed to go as a normal soldier and not as the personal bodyguard, that's mean an officer in an army of gods, Achish realized that he can't. He can't, you have to tell him the truth. And he told him that, listen, I have to tell you the truth. The governor, the officer, the minister of the Plishtim does not trust you. They're frightened of you because they think that you're going to turn on us. That means that's the first time that Achish Melech got now telling David HaMelech the truth. At the beginning, he didn't want to hurt his feeling, said the Mefarshim. But now, the Malbim explained that he told them straight, listen, not only the ministers, not only the soldiers, now it's the governor that's putting pressure on me, and I can't do nothing They said to me that David HaMelech cannot join that war because they don't trust you. In verse 7, look what the prophet say in verse 7, ואתה שוב ולך בשלום ולא תעשה רע בעיני שריני פלישתים.
So now return and go in peace, and do not do what is wrong in the eyes of the Philistine governors.
So here Achish Melech Gad saying to David HaMelech, please David, take your men and return back to Tziklag, to the city that I've given you in Gat, but please don't do anything that can cause anything to upset the governor of the Plishtim. Mahari Kara, Rabbi Yosef Kara, he born in France 960 years ago. He said that what Achish saying to David HaMelech, please, I don't, Nachon, that the governor doesn't want you to join the war against the Plishtim. But you have to understand, I don't want you to cause anything to provoke the governors, and I don't want them to provoke you. That means that Achish was worried that David HaMelech now going to get upset and he's going to cause a havoc in a camp of the Plishtim. So he said to him, please return back to Tziklag and don't cause any problem here. I'm begging you, don't cause any trouble. In verse 8, ויאמר דוד אל אחיש, מה עשיתי ומה מצאת בעבדך מיום אשר הייתי לפניך עד היום הזה? כי לא אבוא ונלחמתי באויבי אדוני המלך.
David then said to Achish, but what have I done? And what fault have you found with your servant from the day I have been with you before you to this very day, that I should not come and fight against the enemies of my lord the king?
In this verse, the prophet described that David HaMelech asked Achish Melech Gad, why are you sending me back, okay, to the city of Tziklag? Why are you sending me back? Did I done anything wrong? Did you find anything wrong with me or with my man? Okay? From the day that I start serving you, okay, did you find anything wrong with us? That you're sending us back and you're not allowing me to fight against the enemy of my lord the king? That's how David HaMelech, look how David HaMelech playing the game nicely. And verse 9, ויען אחיש, ויאמר אל דוד, ידעתי כי טוב אתה בעיניי, כמלאך אלוהים, אך שרי פלישתים אמרו, לא יעלה עמנו במלחמה.
So Achish answered and said to David, I know, for in my eyes you are as good as an angel of God. But the Philistine officers have said, he shall not go up with us into battle.
Basically, in this verse, Achish saying to David, listen, I know that you're good, and not only that, that you in the level of an angel. But what can I do? The ministers, the officers, the governors, those that don't want you to join us, because you know the reason that they don't trust you. It's nothing to do with me personally. I actually would prefer you to join me to be my personal bodyguard in this world. The Ralbag explained, and also the Malbim, that here the emphasis that Achish Melech got put, that David HaMelech is like an angel. He trusts him and he's honest like an angel. That's what Achish saying to David HaMelech. But look at verse 10, okay? And look what's happening here. What did he say to David HaMelech? We have to understand. ואתה השכם בבוקר, ועבדי אדונך, אשר באו איתך, והשכמתם בבוקר, ואור לכם ולכו.
So now, arise early in the morning, along with the servants of your Lord who came with you. All of you, arise early in the morning. And when it becomes light enough for you, go.
Here, Achish Melech just asked David HaMelech, him and his men, please return back, okay, to the city of Ziklag, the city of Gat, you know, because that's where they live in Ir Gat, okay. I want you to do it early in the morning. I want you to return early in the morning, and you know why you have to return. I don't have to tell you. The Ralbag and the Malbim put, and they say that the main emphasis in here, that David HaMelech and his men have to live when it's daylight, not at night. We have to understand why is that. One of the suggestions that the people say, that they was frightened that if David HaMelech will tell him that he is returning and he leave at night, he can come back and attack them from the back. So they wanted to make sure the governors and the minister and the officers of the Plishtim that David HaMelech really gone to the city of Ziklag. That's why it says in the morning, that when people can see them. In verse 11, וישכם דוד, הוא ואנשיו ללכת בבוקר, לשוב אל ארץ פלישתים, ופלישתים עלו על ישראל.
So David and his men arose early to leave in the morning to return to the land of the Philistines, while the Philistines ascended to Jezreel.
Okay, what's happening? Here the prophet telling us that David HaMelech and his men wake up early in the morning, okay, and returning back to Gat, okay, where Achish Melech Gat, that was his country. They're returning back to Eretz Plishtim, okay, while the Plishtim gone back to Amek Israel to fight with the Jewish people. That's how this verse ending up. Rabotai, the Mefarshim explained that David HaMelech was very disappointed with what's happened here. And we have to understand that David HaMelech was disappointed because he couldn't join the war, because he wanted to kill the Plishtim from the back, while Shaul HaMelech is taking from the front to kill as many more Plishtim that they can. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want it. Okay? We learn in the next chapter that by that David HaMelech and his men didn't go into that war, it was only for the benefit of David HaMelech and his men. We'll see in the next chapter that by that David HaMelech and his men returned back to the camp after 3 days, that if they wouldn't return after 3 days, it will be a disaster for David HaMelech and his men for 2 reasons, and Be'ezrat Hashem will explain it next week. In the meantime, I would like to wish you all Shavua Tov. Have a good night, and thank you for joining us tonight.